Hello, greetings, everyone. We're just waiting for people are coming in now, so we're just going to give it a couple more moments if you can bear with us. And while you're waiting, and while we're waiting, everyone, please do jump into the chat, introduce yourself, and tell us where you're from. We have a large group of over 300 registered this evening, and we're really excited to get started. We'll just give it a couple more moments. Okay, we're at 7:02. One more moment. Hey, Juan from Mexico, greetings. It's great to see so many people from all over the place, New Brunswick and Oshawa and London, Ontario. That's where I am. Hello to you. Okay, shall we get started, Anna?
Yes, let's get started.
Okay. Okay, greetings everyone again. Welcome. We're thrilled that you could join us. My name is Rod. We're going to do some more introductions here in a moment. Um, and t Turnjeet, if you could just advance the slide, we'll get to the next slide. We could get to the introductions. Okay. So as I said, my name is Rod. I am the CEO of Devant. Um, I'm going to we'll be introducing Aahna and Ternjeet. Aahna is a coach and a coach with Devant and a recruiter, an extremely knowledgeable person that helps us out a great deal. So I'll let Aahna introduce herself in a moment. We also have joining us today Ternjeet, who is a data analytics student working with us, an intern working with us, and she's running the show behind the scenes. So just wanted to introduce my colleagues. Um, I'll say a bit more in a moment about Devant, but just quickly about myself. So um, I am the CEO of Devant, but the reason I'm here speaking to you tonight is not because of that. It's because we have I've spent my entire life working in higher education and in student services. I've built two companies now. The first one is called Academica Group, and it's still going today. You can Google that if you like. We work with colleges and universities all over the country on helping them with student success, student satisfaction, career services, and student recruitment and that kind of thing. So, in other words, I've spent my life in this area, and I just mentioned that because I wanted you to know that we one of the things that I found that needed the most support or could use benefit from the most support in all of higher education was career services. And it's because of that that I started Devant along with another colleague, Denis Gravel. And we've been operating now for 5 years. So I'll say more about our mission, but I just wanted you to understand that this is where we're coming from. This is why we're here today. We have lots of information to share with you, and we're going to tell you, more about Devon in a moment. But over to you, Hannah, for a brief introduction.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name's Aahna, and I'm a career mentor dedicated to helping job seekers unlock their potential. So I've worked with job seekers for over 15 years and helped them through their end-to-end job search process. So whether be, how to find that first opportunity to how to address interview questions. So I'm glad to be of help today.
Great. Thank you, Aahna. Taranjeet, do you want to say hello?
Hello, everyone. My name is Taranjeet, and I'm an intern at Devant. And this is my first time organizing an event. I'm behind the scenes, and if I'm doing any mistakes, please, I'm apologizing in advance. But this is my first time. I'm so excited about this, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Taranjeet. I'm sure it's going to be fine, and we really appreciate everyone coming tonight. So that's go ahead, Taranjeet, please advance the next slide. We are we need to just cover some basics, and then I'm going to jump into some background that I think will be useful to you. So the usual stuff here, folks. We've got all participants muted, but you should be able to hear via your computer and device, obviously. There's no need to use video. The session is being recorded. It's important for us to note that and shared with all registrants. It will be shared with all registrants by email. You can post questions. Questions, that you want to bring to the attention to ourselves and the coach, I want you to put in the Q&A and use the chat for things like the greetings and that kind of thing. So we'll provide you with more, with more directions there. But basically, that's the distinction. There's going to be opportunities for participation, and we want you to put your questions in the Q&A, and then we'll have a better chance of finding them all and trying to answer as many as we can. Um, so that's um, so that's what we are, who we are, and basically what we're going to do today. So we're going to cover. Um, my slide just slid away. Did anyone else's? There we are. um, we are going to cover networking, how interviewing and networking are connected. It's not something we always necessarily put together, but we're going to for you today. And we're going to talk about why this matters. And we're also going to help you with understanding what you can do with this information. So now, just a bit more about Devant, like I said, because I think it's important you're spending the time with us tonight. You need to know who we are and what we're about. Some of you will be participants already working with us on Alumni Advantage and one of our other platforms. But it's important that we start off by saying our purpose. Our purpose is just what you see there. It's to help everyone that we possibly can to get their ideal job as quickly as they can. We know it's a tough job market, and we just keep reminding people that we're here for you, and we've got a lot of information and resources to share with you. Our purpose. Now, go ahead, Taranjeet. It's not only that's our purpose, but one prime principle that we operate here under was one of the most fundamental principles of career development, which is a belief that if you know what your interests are, and if you know what your strengths and your weaknesses are, and you know what your ideal career is, then you are much more likely to find that and get that ideal job. If you think about it, there's a lot of reasons for that. A couple of them are, for example, that if you know what you're looking for specifically, you spend a lot less time applying for random jobs that you're not really well qualified for. And so the better you know that, the more likely you are to find that ideal job. And more importantly, or equally importantly, once you do, if you know the answer to those questions that I just mentioned, you're going to be much more compelling and convincing when talking to a recruiter. When they ask you the question, why are you the right person for the job? You will know because you've done your research and you understand where your strengths are and how they fit the job. So just wanted to mention that before we get into what we actually do, or what we actually provide. So Devant is the only organization in the country that has a platform completely devoted to this. We have a complete set of tools and resources that are available 24/7, and everything you need is here. Um, Taranjeet, if you just want to click through, you're gonna see that what we have here is basically a whole bevy of AI-driven tools, AI assisted tools to help you with the work, the resume development, the cover letter development, those kinds of things that you have. You may have good versions of those. We have a resume scanner that will give you feedback and that will tell you whether or not you're going to get through the ATS devices, that kind of thing. We have interview practice software, which is very important, and we'll talk about that tonight. But we also have a whole lot of video-based tutorials, interactive tutorials as well. And we have a complete and comprehensive library of resources you can use, things like aptitude tests, career interest inventories, all kinds of things to help you nail down that that you're nail down your ideal sort of interests, that kind of thing. And finally and importantly, we have the human component. So the tools and the resources, but also the humans, qualified and very experienced coaches available. We have events like tonight, and tonight we're talking about these two things, but we bring in employers, we bring in recruiters like Aahna. We have a whole bevy of specific kinds of events for folks. And finally, we have a newsletter when you join up that you'll get, and that serves some really useful purposes. Quite frankly, I mean, we keep them brief, but we sprinkle the information, labor market information. We talk about things like pro tips, providing advice, and we're there to help you stay motivated and focused and energized, because looking for work, as we all know, is a job, and it takes and often takes 3, 6, even 9 months, depending on the sector that you're looking for. So now we're going to turn to a quick icebreaker. We want to get involved and have some engagement right away. So I'm going to turn it over to Aahna now, and she's going to be firing off some questions. And we have a poll that Taranjeet is going to bring up for you because we want your input. Over to you, Aahna.
Perfect. Thank you. So once again, good evening. Thank you all for being here from all different parts of the globe. But as Rod has mentioned, we're excited to talk about something that impacts all of us at some point, right? And that is interviews, building strong networking skills. So today's session, our request is to make it practical, interactive. So please put all the Q&As that you might have. So maybe we can kickstart with the first poll, Taranji. Perfect. So you should be able to see the first question. If we can please answer it, that would be really helpful. All right. And the second one as well, Taranjeet. Perfect. So while the poll is coming up again, there'll be the second question, just to get an idea, right? And like I said, feel free to answer this in the chat as well. But throughout the interview process, right, there are different phases, as I call it. So it's the first time you get that first phone call from an HR or screening call, to the telephonic interview. Nowadays, it could be even virtual, or it could be in person, right? So, from your experiences, which is kind of the hardest part during the whole interview phase, right? That's something to kind of it'd be interesting to know, because for different people, it could be that it'll be virtual calls, that virtual interviews. Some are not comfortable or confident with it, right? So in reference to the questions that we've asked, is the reason we want to say is what's powerful about all of this whole entire job search or interviewing phase is that you're not alone. Most candidates struggle with the same things, right? Like structuring answers clearly, reaching out confidently, or staying calm, right? So today's session is designed specifically to address those challenges, whether be it answering interview questions, the soft skills component of it. And we will throughout the session talk about how to prepare strategically, and so hopefully by the end of the session, you will actually leave with practical tools, or have an understanding of how to navigate yourself through the interview sessions. So that's why this session, hopefully you will at least leave the session with some information on, okay, I know I've got this, I know how I need to focus on that. Fair enough. Okay, back to you, Rod, while I get the questions here that I have.
Yeah. Are we going to see the poll results here, Taranjeet? And
Yes.
are you going to start tackling some questions, Ahana?
Yeah, so we don't have any Q&A at the moment. So my request is to all participants, please feel free to ask all the questions,
Ah,
because we'll make it more interactive. So I think We've got the result for the first one. How many in the audience have had job or co-op interviews? 68% yes. So I
Okay.
would really like to hear some feedback or some questions from, people who've had that experience, or even the ones who haven't. Anything you're curious about that you might have heard of, that would kind of make this session more interesting, because at the end of it, the more questions you ask, it'll be more interactive and we'll be able to help you out through it. For the second poll, Taranji?
That's excellent. 68% have had an interview
Yes.
either for a co-op or a job. So we've got a really good experience here in the audience. We hope to use it.
Yep.
Share.
Which part of the interview process feels hardest right now? Preparing
Mm.
answers. Okay. Networking and outreach, managing nerves and interview follow up. Preparing answers. So I can probably give a quick tip for the first one right away. I personally have an interview manual. What it is, it's a list of 20 questions based on my field of profession, from behavioral to situational to general questions, and I have some mock answers that I from my experience. What happens, that's like my cheat guide. You know how when we go for exams we have cheat notes? For interviews, that's my cheat guide. So every time I have to go for an interview, I kind of just review it, because over the years sometimes you forget certain examples. You might have worked on a project in school that you might have completely forgotten about it, right? But throughout those notes, it helps you stay focused. And you kind of can, practicing again makes more perfect. When you practice these interview answers, you feel more confident and comfortable with that, so the nervousness kind of tends to go away. And I'm saying this from personal experience, so definitely try that for that aspect. Anything you'd like to add, Ron?
No, I think that's perfect. And I think as we go along, we're going to get more opportunity to sort of answer and address questions. So thank you for that, Ahana. Before I jump past the slide, I'm just going to let you know that one of the ways that Ahana and I work together very well is that I tend to be the guy thinking, from the 60,000 foot view, what's going on in terms of I like people to understand, not just have the answers, but to really understand what they can do, how they can be thinking about things. So that way, you're better prepared in any situation. Is my perspective. Then it makes you just more adept on your toes. So what we're going to do to start with is we really want to know what the interviewer is thinking, what they're looking for in an interview. So this is again from that 60,000 foot view. And the way I want to do that is to actually go through an interview, sort of an actual interview format. Now, we're not going to go through it in detail, but I'm going to use it to explain what I mean by, understanding the interviewer. Because obviously, if you can put yourself in the interviewer's headspace, the more you can do that, the more effective you're going to be. And it's not something that we typically do necessarily by, just by instinct. It's something you can learn to do. So, let's say you're doing an interview now. It's already, it's sort of started. You get through the introductions and the small talk, that part of it. Um, right away, though, it's going to start. The interviewer is going to ask you, the recruiter is going to ask you to explain more about the position. They may start to explain more about the position, I should say. Quite often do. Or instead, they may ask you about your understanding of the position. Ahana, what's the breakdown? Do you know, like between those two? Do you typically get the candidate to explain what they know about the position, or do you explain the position first?
So I always start with getting an understanding of what they're aware of, applying for that job. I want to get an understanding as the hiring manager. What is it that you're familiar about? How did you review that job posting that was posted out? How did you interpret it? Right, because you
Right.
applied for it. I'm interviewing you. How did you analyze it? So I'm always curious to see how the individual analyzed the job posting, and then right away I know where the expectations, where we stand.
Right, right. And you're going to know a lot about them by the way they answer that. I understand. And we're going
Exactly.
to get into that, folks. We're going to get into that. So thanks for that. So the recruiter may ask you to explain, as Hannah just said. Next, the recruiter asks for more information about your experience and skills, right? And now what they're looking for is they're looking for that match between your hard skills and the skills that are asked for in the job description. So that's where you're looking at, the more of those hard skills. And if it seems you have the solid skills that they're looking for, then they're really going to move on to the next big set of questions, which all fall under one thing. The next thing on the recruiter's mind, once they're satisfied that you've met that basic criteria, you have the skills, you have the credentials, you have your degree and so on. The next thing on their mind is about you, the person. And they want to know basically the kinds of things you see down here. These are the things going on in the back of their head. They're not going to come out and ask you if you're smart, of course, but they're thinking about that. They want to know that you're not just book smart, right? Especially with people recent graduates, and if your experience is minimal, then they're going to try and understand your experience through these questions. They want to know if you're adaptable. They want to know if you work well in teams, of course, and they want to know whether or not you're the type of person that takes initiative or waits for directions. Can you problem solve? Do you have the interpersonal skills to fit in? That's obviously a really big one because they have existing teams and you're going to be joining one in all likelihood. Can you get up to speed quickly? And how well do you handle conflict? Are you reliable? These sorts of things, right? And this is where they will have a variety of sort of behavioral questions that they may use, or they may ask you to, speak to a time when you had to handle this issue or that issue. And what they're trying to get at again is that all these questions are about getting at your soft skills. And today, the soft skills are every bit as important in many cases as the hard skills. I'm going to ask Aahna, rather, can you elaborate on that point about how much they are and how they're going to use these questions?
Okay, sure. So, in terms of soft skills, right, it's extremely important. And also, in the past few years, because everybody has been working remotely. So, I'll give you a traditional, pre-COVID, how we used to just walk into the office, grab coffee, chit chat. So there was no miscommunication. There was no, you know, now you're away, you're working virtually. There, especially you're working on under high pressure. Sometimes communication can fall through, and I feel like soft skills is something that you cannot you kind of have to learn and adapt as you or polish. Everybody has it. It's about polishing it with each experience. Technical skills is something that you can be taught, right? So in today's day and age, a lot of companies even do personality tests. If you ask me, I've given one in an organization I applied for. They made me do a personality test, and they said, we want to see in our team which what color you are at. I think it's a personal, I forgot what the name was, but some companies do that as well, right? So everybody is trying to create a team for success, right? But at the same time, they're also looking at, okay, are you smart enough? How are you adaptable, right? Can you adapt to every scenario, ever changing requirements, right? Again, based on the job you might be applying for. Some jobs need you to be adaptable every single day because the deadlines are coming up, requirements are changing. So they will definitely ask you behavioral questions that range from basic to even probably more complicated questions too, on how you would react in a certain situation.
Yeah, thanks, Ahana. So those soft skills. Now, any of you in the audience, please use the Q&A starting now. I see some questions in there. Please start
Yes.
using the Q&A to share with us if you've been asked any of these challenging and important questions. Things like the ones we're talking about. And while we are putting those in, we'll carry on, but that'll enable us to come back and we can talk about some of those experiences and tougher, challenging questions that you've had, because if you've had them, someone else can benefit from it. So we really try and use this is the power of the network, folks. The more people here, the more we all get to learn from one another. Um, so we'll come back to that after we get some more questions in, or how are we doing there? If there's any that you want to tackle now, Ahana, otherwise I'll move
Sure.
on.
I can probably, we have about six, so we have few. Maybe let me tackle probably two or three. We can
Okay.
tackle two or three and then go back to our other slides as well. So I'll start off with the one of the most interesting ones is how to address career breaks due to family reasons or raising kids. Is it taken positively or not? What should and should not be shared in this regard? So I'll be very honest, career breaks are very common, right? it all depends on how you frame it, right? Employers understand caregiving responsibilities, and many companies actually support that, right? Because work life balance is there. It doesn't automatically mean negative, so don't take it that way. But again, like I said, what matters is how you explain it. If you have to sound confident and clear, right? So even if you've taken a career break, what is it that you have done to close that bridge between, again, depending on the role you are in. If you're, let's say, a developer, technologies come, changes every day. So if there is some sort of course you took or certificate you took, nowadays they have courses on Udemy. What were you doing to bridge that gap while you were off, right? So it's very important to sound confident, clear, and what you have been doing to bridge that career break gap. I've seen people take 2 years, 1 year career break and come back as well. So I have seen that personally. But again, like I said, it's all how you answer that question. Because if you sound confident and clear, I will, as the hiring manager, feel confident, like, okay, she knows or he knows, what they're doing. So that's my feedback on that. Rod, anything you'd like to add on it?
No, um, there's so many good questions there. I'm going to let you tackle the next two
Okay,
or
all
three
right.
that you can fit in.
Okay. So the next one is, how about when they ask you if you have any questions, what would you recommend the top three questions we should ask? Um, so again, depends on what you are as an individual looking for. I always like to walk into an interview and at the end know what the hiring manager's expectations are from someone walking into this role. So one of my top question favorite is, so first, what is it that you are looking for from this individual who will be in this opportunity, role? What are your expectations? Because what happens is, the biggest challenge as a job seeker is when you walk into an interview, you even get that job, but if the expectations are not clear, it creates mismatch, right? So that's my first question. Second question is always like, what is success for you in the first 6 months? What would success look like? So in my head, I want to know, if I want to be somewhere in a year or 2 years, what does success look like in 6 months, right? This also gives the hiring manager an opportunity to see you're confident, you want to get this job, but you are also prepared, like, you are results driven. So that is a hidden soft skills. Like, they get to assess your soft skills without you saying it, right? They want to know how
Right.
passionate you are, they want to see results, and you want to show them that, what, I want to walk into this job, show my results, I know what I want to get. So again, it's all about expectations, but at the same time, you want to show them how, what you really want out of this opportunity, right? So that's probably one of the top two questions I always tend to ask, right?
We're going
um
to have some, and we're going to have some more advice on the next section on that one, by the way,
yeah.
Ahana, right? Right. In the next
Yep.
section, we're going to talk about how to use networking and research to
Exactly.
really to really sharpen your presence in the interview and your questions. So
Yep.
that's an excellent
No, I think
question.
those are the two top ones. I mean, I wouldn't, there are a few don't ask, but I think we leave it at that. We are getting quite a few, so I will just take probably one more and then move on. What are
Sure.
some ways to stand out during interviews? You will get that again. We will discuss it. I think a lot of these questions will be addressed in our upcoming slides. So I think what we'll do, Rod, is move on. Let's
Yep.
first, because a lot of these are skills related
Yeah.
stuff. Let's move on
Well,
and then we'll get back to this.
absolutely, because we can come back to them. So yeah, because
Yeah.
I think the next section is also going to spawn some questions and hopefully answer
Hmm.
some questions. I always think of it as a good session if we're both answering questions and getting questions, right? So
Right.
hopefully that's going to work for that purpose. So this is about mastering interviews through strategic research and networking, which was really the title of the session. Um, Particularly how to interview, how to use stand-on interviews using networking. And networking is really research. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that. So go ahead, please, Turnji. It's like I said, networking starts with research. Now, you will know this, many of you, but I'm going to go through it because these principles are so vital. Um, Basically, research provides you with two main advantages, right? It's quite simple, two things. It will help you develop a wealth of background information about the company or the organization, everything from, their size and strategic plans, revenue goals, that kind of thing. Um, and I'm going to make the case that if you've got a job interview coming up and you haven't done this kind of work, you're potentially missing out because somebody else may very well be doing it. But anyway, you want to learn about the competitors. You want to learn if they're a public sector organization. You want to learn as much as you can about that sector. And you want to know things like sector size and characteristics, growth plans, cutting back, key challenges, that kind of thing. That's the first thing it's going to help you with. That's the thing you're probably most familiar with. It will also help you identify potential information interview candidates, and it will help you shine through those interviews, both the information interviews and an actual job interview. The information interviews give you a chance to learn more about the sector by making by making the information interview about questions and about learning as much as you can rather than I'm trying to get a job. And so really the research is for those two primary purposes. Now I'm going to show you with this next slide. I'm going to basically just again make it really clear how to get this research done. And this is stuff, by the way, that a lot of people do not do. How do we know this? We know this because we hear from employers all the time, and we work with recruiters like Aahna, and we continue to hear that people didn't really know much about the company, or didn't really know that much about the position, and that always just sort of breaks everyone's heart, right? Because today with the internet and AI, there's really no reason. It used to be hard to get information like this, and the insiders had the information, right? People that knew somebody, but that's not the case anymore. So basically, industry and sector conferences are a big, big source of information. You can review the panel presentation and topics, and just review them, little abstracts about their presentation. You're going to learn so much about the sector. Sector industry blogs, topics just review over the last 6 months. There's very few organizations or sectors, I should say, out there that aren't already being blogged about, where there aren't already communities talking about these things. So you want to get in there, you want to be kind of like creeping on Facebook there. You want to be learning as much as you can. And then, of course, when you're ready to jump in, you can jump in and be part of the dialogue. Um, using AI for sector research, I even say all the way to the level of like a mini SWOT analysis. What are the challenges, threats, opportunities in that sector and for that company? And so now I'm going to give you an example of sort of how to actually turn that around and start using it. So you've done this research. It makes you more confident, frankly, and it makes you more, better informed. And so when you get those questions about, you know, what's the fit between yourself in this job, or best fit between yourself and this job, you're in a better position to talk. You're not trying to impress them with jargon or anything like that. You're simply trying to show them that you've done your research, and you're going to, and you're able to ask intelligent questions like this, for example. So you might have an opportunity during the interview to say something like, that in preparing for this interview, I did discover that ABC company is growing, while some of your competitors are actually experiencing problems. Am I right about that? Now they asked you if you had any questions. Now you've turned it back to them and given them an opportunity to shine, right? Giving them an opportunity to talk about the company and how, how well it's doing or not. Or even if it's a tougher question, you've turned it back to them in a positive way, and you've demonstrated that you've done your homework. Another example might be, I see that ABC company has plans to expand across Canada. That's really exciting. Is there a timeline to achieve that? These are really, just basic questions, but it's grounded in the fact that you've done your research and you know what they're doing. And you might be out of 40 people being interviewed. I don't that's probably too many these days, but out of 4 or 5 people whittled down for interviews, you might be the only one demonstrating that you've done that kind of research and have that kind of understanding. So in our view, being like looking for work is work. We always say, and it's in many ways, arguably, it's equally as important as finding that job, finding that right job, getting the right fit early on is equally as important as your entire degree. If you want to think about it that way, because you might have spent 3 to 5 years on your education. Good for you. You learned a lot. You might spend 40 or 50 years actually in the field of in employment. So that just gives you a sense of how important all that is. So what we're going to do now is we're going to turn to back to some of those questions. I'm going to give Aahna a chance to reflect out loud on what I was just saying about how to use that kind of question. Aahna, in your experience, have you encountered that, and what's the impact on you, the recruiter? Just speak a bit about that.
Sorry, Rod, your voice broke a little in the middle. If you can repeat the question.
Oh, sorry.
Um, yeah.
I hope it's not happening too much.
No, 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 it's not.
What I was asking Aahna was, um, in your experience, when you've encountered people that have done that kind of background research for an interview,
Mhm.
can you just tell us a little bit about that from the point of view of the employer and the recruiter?
Perfect. So I think research is very, very key, right? Because what happens is so I've been in both shoes. I've been in the recruitment space where I'm recruiting actively, and then I've also been hiring in corporate as well. So the amount of research that the other individual has done tells me that, a, who they are and what they're looking for. So it gives me a lot about their personality just by knowing the research. One classic example that I would love to share, and I honestly I keep sharing it all the time, uh, is that while I was working in this organization, in this one organization, our company had won the best managed awards, right?
Mm.
And I had a new grad. She was, she graduated from human resources bachelor's and just graduated, was looking for an opportunity. But what she did was she just picked up the phone and called, the company, and said, "Oh, I'd like to speak to someone in HR." And the phone was transferred, and I answered. And she said, "I'm just calling. My name is, Joe, and I'm just calling to congratulate you because I noticed that your company's name is in the best managed company." So this is basically all the employers, they apply for these awards. And
Mhm.
if if your profits and if your what your company's mission is in line with that, you kind of get an award, right? So it's based on a lot of different criterias. I, on the other side, I was pretty impressed because I said, this person took the time out to research about who we are, what we do. She knew what, we were a recruitment agency. She knew who our clients were. She knew what the roles we were hiring for. So I was pretty impressed by it. And it wasn't regarding any job. So I called her over for coffee. We met. And you know what? Within the 20 minutes, 30 minutes of our conversation, we had a contract opportunity for her. So it goes to tell you, it tackles two things: the research she did, also how she used it, but also networking. They go hand in hand.
Yes,
It's not one or the other. It's not you do the research, it doesn't work only that way. You are doing the research that helps you establish a conversation with the person you're interacting with. If
exactly.
you are going into a job fair, first thing you should do is browse up all the employers who are there, know a little bit about them. Those are your small talks. You have to communicate with them, but it is always nice to know how much this individual knows about the company, because that shows your interest in the job opportunity, right?
Yeah.
So research always goes a long way. The right information, right? Who you're meeting, the type of questions you should ask, right? So always, and that comes with practice, that comes with doing the right research because you're confident in what you know. So
Yes, and
that's
thanks, Ahana. I couldn't agree more. We're up to the almost 20-minute mark, so we like to get
yep,
as many questions as we can. Ahana, I'm going to ask you to
yep.
start skimming the questions while I riff off on another point about that you just reminded me of. Um, I always like to remind people that, and I'm not trying to be like, the downer here. I just like reality. I like to approach things from the point of view of reality, which is it's a tough job market out there right now. The country's experiencing a lot of challenges. We all know that. And so what's happening is employers, they're kind of being less adventurous. Their each hire is more important and more critical. They're being more circumspect, that kind of thing. So again, this kind of research is going to make sure that you make the best use of that interview opportunity if you get it. But it's also going, as I said earlier, help you find contacts for information interviews. And just really, again, when you're asking those individuals intelligent questions about the sector, before you know it, they're saying, well, you know what, maybe I'll mention so and so, so and so may be interested in talking to you as well, and that's how it goes. The other thing that I like to remind people is that um, it's around 70% of all jobs are not advertised in this country. So some of you have probably heard this before. It's pretty challenging, right? If they're not advertising, you're not going to find the job on Indeed. And that's because so many small employers really do not hire that way. They hire people that sometimes that they know, but many professional companies can't rely on their on their niece or nephew or something. They're looking for the best, but each hire for them is so critical. So think about it. You've got six people. Um, you're going to hire one person. That's 15% of your 15% of your workforce, and that's how they're looking at it. And so again, it's good to put yourself in the mindset of the employer. So in the case of these smaller businesses, here's an interesting little tidbit that a lot of people don't really understand. And don't take it like too literally, but it's good background information. A larger company, you've got an HR person, a recruiter like Aahna and many others that we work with. And their job is to hire the best person for the job. They do not want to make a mistake. They're judged on how what they're hiring is like, that kind of thing. So I always say they're a little more risk averse. Like they want to get the right, the right person. And so they're looking at that fit side of things. Aahna is nodding there. Um, when you go to a small employer, of course, they're looking for the same things, but they're also looking for how can you help them grow? Like, they're really, the mindset shifts to, okay, what is that whole value proposition? What can you bring me? That kind of thing. And so, um, while they're always like both companies, both sizes, large and small, are looking for that question, I'm just pointing out to you that when you're doing your research, you're going to discover all kinds of smaller companies. And this is your opportunity to, like I said, discover about them. And then, reach out like the example that Aahna used with the person that called her, and reach out and start up conversations, maybe just learning more about the sector. So that's, again, just some psychology to understand more and more about, what the position and the goals of the recruiter are. Because again, you're going to be more effective if you understand that. So just wanted to share that. Well, Hannah, did you discover any questions that you think
Yes,
could
yeah,
share
we
with
have about
everyone?
18 questions. So, but I will dive into those. But just to add to what Rod is saying, and I think we do have sessions, on LinkedIn as well. So I strongly recommend all participants to attend that webinar as well. LinkedIn is a very, very, very powerful tool. Believe me, it is wealth of information if used correctly. It is a
Yeah,
great networking platform, provided you use it correctly, right? So I mean, I don't want to change the whole session, but I would strongly suggest attend that session too, because I think uh, if LinkedIn is used correctly, it'll give you, it's, I always say your network is your net worth, and that
yeah,
platform helps you achieve that. So, your researching part, Google is there, yes, but
right,
LinkedIn, following the organizations, have a list of your 20 companies that you want to target.
right.
Based on that, find people, find common connections on LinkedIn, interact with people. You might message 20 people, one might respond, none might respond. Having said that, don't give up,
Right.
because
Well, and
people do.
good point, Anna. And I can just add that, not only do we have panel sessions like this,
Yeah.
where coaches talk about engineering, how to use LinkedIn to its most, its best effect. We also have a video tutorial on it
Mhm.
on our
Yeah.
platform for people, and it's developed by coaches again, specifically about how to get the best use out of LinkedIn. And we do talk about how to use it as research. In fact, one of our tools is gives you the ability to search on LinkedIn when you're looking for network contacts a little more specifically than just generally doing it. So we've refined a tool there that we use in the LinkedIn mini course. So
Sounds good.
just to reiterate what you were saying about the importance of
No,
that on.
perfect. Thank you for bringing that. I wanted to make sure the participants are aware of it. So we will dive into the questions, because I see there are about 18. So, um, again, without going into too much of detail, right? What are some ways to stand out during interviews? I think we've already addressed this. Research, sounding confident, clear of your skills and experience that you have. So That's very important. If you research, you will know, about the job posting, what they're looking for. Your answers should reflect passion, how interested you are in the opportunity. Your answers should reflect where you want to be in a couple of years as well. So a lot of managers want to see clarity and clear communication and direction, right? If you sound nervous, or if you're not clear of where you want to be in the few years, so it again, it has to be aligning expectations, right? So always research that, start with that. That's the step number one. Okay. So the next one is, what are common mistakes candidates make in interviews? The top one, as per me, would be overconfidence, being overconfident.
Hmm.
Again, we're all humans, right? We understand people get nervous. If I have to go for an interview, I will get nervous too. But if I walk in an interview being overconfident of I know it all, that can sometimes come across, again, a little intimidating, or maybe it's like, okay, you're perfect. So, like, for example, I've had a situation where I asked someone, what would you say is an area of improvement? And this person paused for probably 5-10 seconds and says, nothing. Honestly, I don't think I need to work on anything. I was a little taken back, because we all have to work on something. It could be a skill, it could be a soft skill, it could be a technical skills, right? But we can't just come across and say, well, no, I'm perfect. So,
Yeah.
overconfident is something, that a lot of people tend to make mistakes on that one. you
That's
know
a tough question though, isn't it? That balance between, sounding, as you said, clear and confident and not overly
exactly.
confident. And that was one of the questions. I'm not sure if you dealt with that one so far. I don't think so. When they ask that question, what areas do you need for improvement, or what are your strengths and
Yeah.
weaknesses? Um, yeah, how do you like to see that one answered?
Yeah, so that's actually one. I think we've received two questions on that specifically. Yeah, that's a very common one. I always tell them, pick a weakness that you are working on, or you have worked on in the past. For example, in recruitment, right? We are sourcing, we are reaching out via phone calls. We have other priorities that we're working on. We're working on RFP. We're working on a bunch of things, right? So I always say that, for someone in my role, we have to multitask a lot, right? Because we're dealing with different initiatives. Previously, what used to happen was I used to get so engrossed in one that I used to have to overcompensate. I used to work extra hours trying to get all of that work done. However, over the years, what I have realized is I have learned to prioritize and my time, create a schedule for myself. So I know 2 hours I'm going to dedicate to this, 1 hour I'm going to dedicate to this. This has helped me overcome that, and I've kind of now become more proficient in managing my time efficiently. So this is roughly an example sometimes I use. Similarly, what I would suggest for you all is, weakness is always tough, but identify, it could be even a skill that, when I graduated, I was very shy, or in general too, I'm an introvert person. But now what I've started doing is I've started practicing. When I walk into a room, I've started learning the art of small talk. Hey, how are you doing? And in Canada, weather is something we all discuss. So that's how you can answer that question, right? Anything that you
That's
have
good.
worked on, that is, you've already handled it, or you're working in progress.
Well, you
um
just accomplished two things there, Anna. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
yeah.
You,
No,
you
no,
just
no worries.
accomplished two things with that. You declared, yes, you have some weaknesses like everyone else, and you demonstrated initiative by saying, here's what I've been working on with that. I think that's a really good way to put it together.
Yeah, I think that's because again, we have to be always mindful the answers we give. Everyone, the person who is listening to it is not only looking at it from a technical perspective, but also addressing the soft skills behind it, right? If you notice that this is something that you need to work on, are you taking action, yes or no? I'm being honest, but people think like that, right? We're all different
Yeah.
personalities, so everyone might perceive questions differently. Okay.
Yeah.
So I have seen different views on how to answer. Tell me about yourself, the most popular one.
Mm.
Uh, so tell me about yourself. It's. I always say, type that answer first, polish it, see how comfortable you're speaking with it, right? the traditional way a lot of people, start off with, well, I started off, my career at this year, this, and I graduated in this year and I did this. uh, I always say that's a little traditional, old school way. Use this as an opportunity to talk about, make it impactful, but also talk about your personality, right? So, I'm someone who has over 10 years of experience in the field of recruitment and HR. I started off my career working in a recruitment agency where I had a success ratio of 90% of job seekers that I was coaching and mentoring. I had a sort of interview to hire ratio of 90%. Moving from there, I moved into this where I achieved this. So right here, when in my answers, when you hear number, that validates my experience. Versus
Right.
if you hear me talk about, I started off my career with this, where I was responsible for this, they've already seen that on your resume. That's why you're sitting in front of them, right? Or you're talking to them. Make that
Right.
answer, the tell me about yourself, away from the traditional, make it more impactful. Talk about some data, right? When I tell you 90% interview to hire ratio, you're going to be like, oh wait, what did she say? You will be forced to listen to me one more time. So always try to, that's why I say that interview manual is very, very important. It comes in handy here, because if you have read those answers, from your experiences, it'll help you be more prepared, right? So that's the
Yeah.
way I say, I would suggest is tackle that question. Anything you'd like to add to that, Rod, since it's a very popular
Well,
one?
just that I agree with it so much, and I think it's really important advice, and I can add to it in this sense. Uh, you can go the next level with this, not only by writing it out ahead of time and practice reading it. You can practice the interview. If you're if you're a member of Devant, you have access to an AI driven interview software, so you can actually have that opportunity to answer that question and see yourself and see how you handle. And you gotta do it, folks. If you haven't, you got to try it to see just how powerful the practice videos are, the practice interviews rather, because you really see yourself. I remember my first time and but this was before we had AI driven, software to help us. But the photographer zeroed in on my feet because I was so nervous. My feet were moving up and down, and it was distracting. And he captured it on video, and it had just a profound influence on me. Right, taught me to control my body, more consciously. Just one example, but that's the power, folks, that you didn't have even 5 years ago. You couldn't go on ChatGPT and do the kind of research you can do. Our platform, we pulled it all together in one place for you, but that's the reason, so that you can practice those skills. Next question, Aahna, did
Yes.
you?
Uh, yeah. So
What do
the
we have
next one
time
I've
for?
gotten is salary related questions, generic.
Ah,
Um, so I always suggest, if you're asked, what are your salary expectations, um, always have a range in mind versus a certain number. Um, and that range should be based on some sort of you know research, right? I
research.
can't just say, right, I can't just say like, and this all ties back to research. I know we don't want to sound like a broken telephone, but research helps you identify the role you want to be, identify where you want to be 5 years from now, identify the salary range you want to be in, helps you build that career. If you haven't researched, you research even going to which college or university, right? So again, it all comes down to that. Always give them a range. From my experience, I have, based on my research, I've noticed that this job title, job position with the responsibilities that you've mentioned range from this to this. Standard, fair answer. Okay.
Mm.
um what So the next question I had is, uh sorry, employers.
Here's a different one. Sorry to throw you off, but I
Yeah, no
haven't seen
worries.
this one asked. I've been asked, this person, Shahrukh says, I've been asked in an interview, what thing in your career that you regret?
Yeah, that's the one I was looking for, because I found that
Was
very
it?
interesting.
Okay, I thought it was pretty interesting too.
Yeah, it's a very, I'm actually a little taken back because I've never heard as such of that question, because what is one thing in your career that you regret? But I always, what I would suggest for that particular question is, take a step back, analyze and think, right? It doesn't have to be a huge thing. It could be something very, very simple, right? It could be something very minuscule, right? For example, it could be, well, I don't know, like again, because I'm not sure of the industry you are from, so it's kind of very tough for me to frame that answer. But it could be something as simple as I started off my career in IT. I started studying IT, and I realized IT was not my calling, and then I moved
Mm,
into accounting. Like for example, I know certain people, they start off with a certain career. It could be
yeah.
you're maybe a developer, and you're like, okay, clinical research. So again, what they want to know ideally from that question is there any thing that you regret? It could be a mistake, because when it comes to, when you talk about clinical research, any information that you might not be comfortable with or anything, right? So again, you can also answer, to my knowledge, I don't think I regret anything so far, because every day is a learning experience and we adapt.
That's
You don't
that's a
have
good.
to you don't have to say I regret something, when if you don't, right? So you can
Yeah.
always say I haven't had that experience so far, that where I'd have to regret my career, but because every day is a new day, right? Something simple
Yeah,
too.
here's another tough one. I know we're low on time, but I think probably this might be one of the most difficult questions, the one we hear repeatedly. So let's just
Mhm.
talk about this for a moment. I have an interview tomorrow. I got the call despite my lack of experience. What is the best way to manage the experience gap during the interview?
So my always point on that question is, the reason they're calling you is because they see something on your resume that you don't. So first, let's get that
Mhm.
cleared up. Okay? That's the
Mm,
reason they're calling you. So they know you have that gap, they see it. You don't have to advertise it when you go there. You focus on what you can bring to the table. It's as simple as that. The minute you start thinking, oh, why are they calling me? Well, because you applied for the job. They see something on your resume. So be confident, be clear, right? Do your research again, right? Know what, and then, walk into the interview confidently, right? Because, hey, listen, you already won half the battle, right?
yeah.
So now it's just presenting yourself and saying, I mentioned on my resume, I know this, I know it. And how I know it is by this. That's all.
Yeah, that's fair. And you know what I would add? That experience, I didn't mention it at the outset, but well, I meant to because, but the tough questions that we were using the practice interview for about, have you do you have initiative? Are you conflict solver? Those kinds of things. That's one of the reasons people that experience is so important and why companies place so much emphasis on it, right? Because they're using experience as a proxy for those other skills, those soft skills. So to the man or woman here that's asked that question, all I can say is that um, I appreciate and I repeat what Aahna said in terms of they think there's something there for you to go over that and look at it. But part of your understanding, is that that's the way that they are trying to assess. They're trying to assess experience through these other values that you have. So just be prepared to speak as much as you can about those kinds of things like your skill set and your soft skills, that kind of thing. Because if you have the hard skills but not the experience, like I've myself hired individuals where one candidate I knew had more hard skills.
Mhm.
He was just sort of further up on the curve, but I didn't like her particular demeanor, and I'm so conscious of my team. I went for another individual who wasn't quite as high up on that skill set, but their soft skills were excellent. And so, as an employer, I can work with this. I can work with somebody who fits in and has initiative. I can't necessarily work with some genius who doesn't get along with anybody. And I'm exaggerating to make the point, but you see what I'm saying?
No, I totally agree with that, Rod. I think one common question that we've got, and I just want to kind of put it out there for everyone, is how to handle nervousness, behavioral questions. How do I answer behavioral questions or situational questions? I am a fan of Chat GPT, but also not a fan, because every resume I come across is Chat GPT verified. Every answer sometimes I get is, especially on phone calls, it's I just know it if someone's giving me a Chat GPT answer.
Right.
Use it, but always make it your own as well. um,
Yep.
all the questions that we're getting about how do I answer behavioral questions, how do I handle nervousness, all of this will come with research and practice.
Yeah.
Research about the company, research about the job, create that interview manual with your questions, have your answers on it. I would suggest stand in front of a mirror, practice it. That helps you, have that. How are you looking, right? So practicing it, helps you have a correct posture. Some people have hands flying, while they're talking. Eye contact, smile, right? So practicing in front of a mirror. I know it sounds funny, but trust me, it helps a big way. So practice and research for all the nervousness and the behavioral and situational questions, I would
You-
say.
You'd be surprised. You just reminded me that with our interview software, one of the things that it tracks is smiling frequency, and
Hmm.
it tracks the use of filler words.
Yep.
When you don't know how to answer, we tend to fill it in with that kind of thing, or have somebody look at your transcript and see how many times you said It's terrible. I'm
Hmm.
terrible. So I can just imagine what I'd be like if I was really nervous. But again, that opportunity, as you say, to practice it, really, really, really smooths it out. It makes you more confident. We have found with our interview software, because we can track the frequency of everything, that you would not believe the percentage of people when they're practice interviews get low score for smiling frequency.
Right.
Yeah, and we have a little explanation of why smiling is appropriate and how to sort of do it. But yeah, I mean, when you're nervous and you're concentrating, you don't necessarily do that. So as you said, it's about practice. We don't have
Yeah.
any Olympic athletes that go win gold medals or any medal without practice and without that ability to visualize where they want to be.
Hmm. Yeah, no, and I think that's where all a lot of job seekers lack that, right? Because they get they doubt themselves so much. So don't over doubt yourself. If you're prepared, you've done your homework, you shouldn't doubt yourself, right? Being nervous, it's okay. We're all humans. We all understand. Hiring manager also understands that. But again, with nervousness comes accountability and responsibility. How responsible are you towards your own research? How accountable are you for the job you might be doing, right? How
Mm.
passionate are you? How, you don't want to sound over desperate either. Like, I want this job, yes, but you have to also show that I want this job because I have this. This is what you're looking for, and this is what I can do for the organization. So who you are, what you do, and how you can help the organization grow. Those are the three things. When you
Bingo.
keep that in mind, it everything becomes a lot more simpler.
Yes. And sometimes you just won't get it, but put it under the category of practice.
Yeah.
Okay, I see we're past the end of our time, so
Yep.
we're going to have to sign out. But thank you so much to my panelists, to my fellow guests, Aahna and Taranjeet in the background. Thank you so much, and everyone. It was really great to see the vast array of experiences. The questions illustrated just how much experience these folks have. So please do join us again. We're going to put up here uh, how you can join the Alumni Advantage. There's a QR code. Go check it out. Take a look. Like I said, we have put our backs into this. We've put together everything that you could possibly need, and we're very people conscious. It's not just about AI. It's AI plus H in our world. So thanks again, everyone, and bye. And we'll see you next time.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Take care.